Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well. So in this video we are going to be reviewing Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Now it's a really interesting one with The Rise of Skywalker, as the original vision by Disney was to have a different director for each of the sequel trilogy movies, which was an interesting decision as that inevitably is going to lead to very different visions happening for each of the different movies, which is exactly what happened when The Last Jedi was directed by Rian Johnson, who took it in a very different direction to what some of the things that were being set up in The Force Awakens. And then with J.J. Abrams directing The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, that was very apparent as he completely retconned some of the decisions made by Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi for The Rise of Skywalker, as it's a very different movie to some of the decisions that were being made. It's a really cool movie, don't get me wrong, but it's a really messy one from a sequel trilogy perspective, such as Snoke was being set up to be the new big bad in The Force Awakens, and in The Last Jedi they completely destroyed his characters. They were kind of like, okay, we just have to kind of deal with that in this movie. And then the revelation of Rey being the child of nobodies was totally retconned in The Rise of Skywalker when they kind of made her the child of Palpatine, which is really, really interesting. And then the third one was the rejection of the Jedi side by Luke Skywalker. That was kind of retconned here in terms of actually he does embrace it. So, you know, it was a bit of a messy decision that they were kind of doing in terms of all the different changes that they had from Last Jedi to Rise of Skywalker. I didn't mind them personally because I quite liked the vision that J.J. Abrams had. So I personally didn't mind the changes that he made in The Rise of Skywalker, but I can at least appreciate the fact that it was a bit of a messy sequel trilogy. And also, this movie is not only the final movie within the sequel trilogy, it's also the final movie as part of the 9 Skywalker episodic series. So they had a very big job on their hands in terms of trying to appease all of these different fans, trying to do loads of throwbacks, trying to do loads of respects, trying to have loads of cameos, trying to complete the arc of all of these different characters, trying to make it an interesting standalone movie in and of itself as well. So it had quite a lot riding on it, and for the most part I feel like they did a really good job. The thing that really does frustrate me though with this movie, and with all of the sequel trilogy movies actually, is that they didn't pay enough respect to the Anakin Skywalker character. This was such a legendary character for the first 6 episodes, and in particular for the prequel trilogy, and I just feel like they didn't give Anakin Skywalker or Hayden Christensen any scenes in this sequel trilogy, which is such a shame, as they could have really easily slotted him in and made it a really nice completed movie, especially as the Ben Solo / Kylo Ren character idolizes this character and looks up to him so much, and to some extent does kind of follow the path in terms of going from light to dark and kind of being seduced by the dark side and then being really conflicted and really confused. The Anakin Skywalker character could have really helped this character, and it just would have made it all just a lot more nicer and a lot more completed. But you know, that being said, let's put that idea to the side for the moment and let's review Rise of Skywalker, because it is actually a pretty decent movie. So in terms of the plot of this movie, I like how they did something different to The Last Jedi. So in The Last Jedi, they split up all of the different characters and each of them were kind of doing their own thing. Whereas in The Rise of Skywalker, they're all kind of united and they're all a big team and they're all kind of doing their missions together as a group, which I thought was really, really nice actually. A real nice change. And it's really nice to kind of see them as a group, all of the new characters at least, a couple of old characters in there as well, and them just kind of being a group throughout the movie. Obviously Rey does kind of break off and does do her own thing as well, but for the most part they're kind of a group together, and it's just really, really nice kind of seeing all the banter between all the different characters, seeing them grow and kind of being a real team. So that was really, really nice. But let's go through all of the different story strands one by one. So the first story strand is all about the Sith Wayfinder. So the main mission throughout the movie is for the group to find the Sith Wayfinder so that they can use it to find the hidden Sith planet Exegol, and then they can defeat Palpatine and his final order. And I find it really interesting the contrast between how at the beginning of the movie Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, is just such a boss in terms of easily finding the Wayfinder and then splicing his way through and getting to the base and then kind of having his conversation with Palpatine where he kind of finds out everything that he finds out, versus how difficult it is for the group of Jedis to kind of find their Sith Wayfinder, and then when they finally, through all of the trials and tribulations, get it. Then Ben Solo kind of destroys it, and then you're like, oh no, what happened? They have to now find another one. So, you know, it was a really interesting kind of storytelling device that they were using in terms of finding this Sith Wayfinder, all of the different clues that they're getting alongside this, all of the different translations that they have to do with C-3PO. So as a core device and story narrative, it was a really great one. We then have the second main storyline strand, which is all about Kylo Ren and Rey's relationship. Obviously, Kylo Ren finds out in the beginning that Palpatine is the big bad behind everything, as he's been puppeteering everything that's been happening across the sequel trilogy, and Palpatine orders Kylo Ren to kill Rey so that they can destroy the Jedi once and for all. This then leads to the Kylo Ren and Rey relationship to be even further expanded upon than it has been over the last 3 movies, which is really, really interesting. And the Force connection between these two characters is even more intense. They can kind of feel like they're in each other's presence, and Kylo Ren really uses this to understand where Rey is, and this really adds intensity to all of the different scenes as Kylo Ren is able to use this and then quickly get to wherever Rey is. So it's very intense. And then I really love how they then kind of flip this relationship 180 towards the end of the movie, where it turns into a Ben Solo and Rey relationship, and then how they partner up as they're both on the light side. So I just feel like this storyline strand throughout this movie was really, really interesting. And not only in this movie, but it was really interesting across the sequel trilogy for these two characters. The next storyline strand is all about Rey's lineage. And over here we learn that Rey is the granddaughter of a Sith. And not just any Sith, Emperor Palpatine, which I thought was such a brilliant twist. I know people weren't a big fan of it, as it totally retconned what we had in The Last Jedi, which is that she is the daughter of nobodies, which they did kind of keep intact here. But actually she is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine, which I just feel like it just made the whole situation so much more meaningful when she had her final confrontation with Palpatine. And the running theme throughout this movie was all about identity, and actually how you're not limited to the identity that you feel like you have and the label that you may have, and the fact that you are able to change that, and that there's no restrictions, and you can make your identity whatever you want it to be. So I just feel like the Rey storyline narrative here was absolutely brilliant, and her final confrontation with Palpatine was just absolutely epic. I wish we saw all of the Force Ghost characters instead of just hearing their voices. I know they were thinking about that, but they chose not to do that because they wanted to have more meaning for the Rey character, and it just being a one-by-one situation with her and Palpatine. But it just would have been nice if they had at least shown some of the other Jedis that are now supporting Rey in the final battle. The next storyline strand is all about Ben Solo's redemption storyline from Kylo Ren back to Ben Solo. So I feel like that was a really, really nice arc. I really love the partnership between Ben Solo and Rey. I feel like they worked together incredibly well towards the end, and was something that we hadn't really seen before. A little bit like a brother-sister relationship, apart from the kiss at the end, that they had between themselves. So that was a really cool kind of use of the good side of the Force. So it would have been nice if we had seen this with Luke and Leia, but at least we kind of saw it with Rey and Ben Solo. So I feel like that arc was really, really nice. And throughout the whole sequel trilogy, I feel like the Ben Solo Kylo Ren character was definitely one of the most interesting characters. Kind of mirrored a lot of the Anakin Skywalker kind of temptation and seduction to the dark side. It was really nice to kind of see the forgiveness of the Han Solo character with the Ben Solo character. Like I said before, it would have been nice if Anakin Skywalker was the mentor kind of Force ghost that was helping Ben Solo kind of see the error of his ways and kind of come out of his confusion. That would have been a really nice touch. I'm hoping / thinking that that kind of happened off screen, and that was the real catalyst that led Kylo Ren to return back to the Ben Solo character. And then the final storyline strand is all about the Resistance versus the Final Order. And over here, I really loved the treatment that they had with the Leia Skywalker character. She was a brilliant kind of mentor towards Rey, kind of helping her with the final aspects of her Jedi training. And then the use of her character was really, really nice. I feel like they really paid respect to the Carrie Fisher character and the Princess Leia character in terms of still being a real force to be reckoned with, kind of still leading the Resistance really, really well, kind of sacrificing herself to help the Kylo Ren character kind of see the error of his ways and become the Ben Solo character, which is really, really nice. And I feel like also it was really nice to see all of the different galaxy characters helping the Resistance to kind of defeat the Final Order. So, you know, all in all, I feel like from a storytelling point of view, they had a very hard job, a lot of things to do but I feel like they balanced it quite well. So from a storyline point of view, The Rise of Skywalker is a really good entry. So from a characters and actors point of view, I feel like The Rise of Skywalker does a really good job in terms of completing everyone's story arc, and I feel like it really mirrors the story arc that is started in Force Awakens. So you can really tell that J.J. Abrams was the guy that directed Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker, as the story arcs between all of the different characters are completed from what they started at the start of the sequel trilogy. But let's go through them one by one. So, like I said before, Carrie Fisher I thought was brilliant as Princess Leia. It was really, really sad when Carrie Fisher passed away, and I feel like they really respected both Carrie Fisher and the Princess Leia character in terms of really still making her a really strong presence, a real strong force to be reckoned with, a great leader, a great mentor figure. I love how she was training Rey in the beginning and still kind of giving orders to all of the resistance. So I feel like the Leia character was excellent. I feel like the Harrison Ford character was great. It was really nice to kind of see his cameo here as well. And actually, on that note, I loved all of the different cameo appearances that they had in Rise of Skywalker. I feel like it would have been nice to see all of the classic characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Anakin Skywalker, etc. kind of making little appearances here as well. Instead of just the Force voices, it would have been nice to kind of see these characters here as well. But, you know, as far as the Han Solo, Harrison Ford cameo goes, it was really nice to kind of see the somewhat redemption happening between Ben Solo and Han Solo having the classic words of "I know," which is kind of when Ben Solo has kind of apologized to him, which is really, really nice. Like I said before, I feel like it should have happened with Anakin Skywalker kind of helping Ben Solo first and foremost in terms of really seeing the error of his ways and kind of seeing the dark side as not being that attractive, not something that he should be seduced by. And I feel like that kind of happened before he saw the Han Solo character, because he was the one that he really idolized, he was the one that he really respected, he was the one that he kind of really wanted to be, he was the one that he really looked up to. So I feel like that would have meant the Ben Solo redemption arc would have been a lot more completed better. We then have Mark Hamill, who does a bit of a cameo appearance as Luke Skywalker, and again he's a bit retconned from what he was in The Last Jedi, as he is a lot more like the truer Luke Skywalker character that we see in the original trilogy. He's a really nice mentor figure for the Rey character, and it's really nice to kind of see him having the strength of the Force power to raise the X-Fighter jet, which is a really nice throwback to The Empire Strikes Back. So that was a really nice touch for this character. Let's go through the new characters now. So first and foremost, we have Daisy Ridley as Rey, and I really like what they did with the Rey character in this movie. They definitely completed her story arc, as she went on a brilliant journey throughout all of the three movies, and in particular in The Rise of Skywalker. I loved all of the tension dynamics that she had with Kylo Ren. All of their battle sequences were absolutely brilliant, super epic, super brilliant, beautiful locations that they were battling at. I loved when she had Force lightning coming out of her hands accidentally. That was a really, really nice touch and a little bit of a foreshadowing of what's to come. I love the fact that she was the granddaughter of Palpatine. I thought that was a brilliant twist, and I love how she kind of owned her own identity and that she didn't want to go down that path, and she, you know, completely flipped that, became a Skywalker, became a Jedi, and then kind of owned her identity even more by having her own lightsaber, and was still a Jedi in training in the beginning to then kind of becoming a bit more of a leader towards the end. Still not a master Jedi, but definitely on that path. So I feel like, you know, they did the Rey character absolutely brilliantly. We then have Adam Driver as Ben Solo / Kylo Ren. And if you watch my other reviews, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan of the actor, but I feel like the character just went on a brilliant journey. And in this movie, you know, I feel like Adam Driver definitely brought his best game, and I feel like he did such a good job in terms of moving the Kylo Ren character to Ben Solo, and he was just such a big force in terms of stopping Rey in all of the different intervals throughout the movie. He was a bit like the Winter Soldier in terms of always stopping her, slowing her down, and then trying to destroy her, and just having a real great redemption arc for the character. So I feel like Ben Solo was also really, really strong here. Oscar Isaac was also really, really great in this movie. In The Last Jedi, he had a lot of maturity and a lot of growth from his character kind of being really immature to being a lot more mature, which was really nice. But I feel like in this movie, he was really funny, and they really had a great kind of love story with this character, and he was just kind of the rebellious, arrogant character. You found out a lot more about his backstory, and he was just really, really great as a team member. So he was a great addition to the team. Similarly with John Boyega's Finn character. Again, I'm not being the biggest fan of John Boyega, but I feel like in this movie, he kind of brought his A game here. He had another love interest. I feel like this character has had so many different love interests throughout all of the different movies, which is quite funny. But I feel like within the team, he works really, really well. So that was a cool little storyline from his point of view. C-3PO as well had a little interesting story arc in terms of having his memory wiped and kind of not being able to speak the Sith language and then being able to speak the Sith language when Babu Frick was able to kind of reset him. So that was a really interesting storyline arc for him as well. Ian McDiarmid came back as well as Palpatine and kind of still demonstrating that he is the puppet master, and he has been the puppet master throughout all of the 9 movies, which is just absolutely crazy. And he's just kind of being the zombie version of his character and really demonstrating the fact that the Sith side really does have things that are very unnatural. So that was a really nice, interesting throwback, and just to show how evil he still is when he was kind of stealing the life force from Rey and Ben Solo. So it really showed how sadistic this character is, but really showing the demonic evil side of his character, and like I said before, really bringing all of the 9 movies together. I love how we also had BB-8 in this movie, definitely the unsung hero throughout the sequel trilogy, as he's just so hilarious and such a great team member as well. And I really loved how we also had Chewbacca here as well, which is really bringing the connection from the original trilogy. It would have been nice if we had seen more of the classic characters. It would have been really nice if we had seen Yoda, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, etc. But you know, that being said, I feel like the characters in this movie were really, really nice. It was great to see the cameos that we did get, and I just feel like all of the different characters went on great journeys, and they really did complete all of the character arcs for all of the different characters in this film. From a visuals point of view, this movie looks absolutely incredible. They go to amazing locations on loads of different planets, so all of the space sequences look really, really cool. All of the different planets look absolutely incredible. The fallen Death Star look absolutely brilliant. The battle out in the ocean looks really, really cool. All of the different little battles between Rey and the Ben Solo Kylo Ren character look absolutely cool. The chase sequences look really, really nice. All of the powers look really, really cool. All of the lightsaber duels look really, really cool. The Force ghosts look really, really cool. The zombie Siths look really, really cool. All of the massive battle sequences look absolutely incredible. So, you know, they've packed a lot in. And from a visuals point of view, this movie really does end on an almighty high. In terms of comparisons, I actually really enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. I know it gets a lot of criticism in terms of the sequel trilogy being a bit of a mess, not being well joined, and kind of being very disjointed actually, because, you know, it had different directors, retconned a lot of stuff, didn't have one clear sense of thought across all of the movies. But, you know, that being said, I feel like they had a hard job on their hands in terms of concluding not only this 3-part sequel trilogy, but the 9-part Skywalker saga. And I feel like from that point of view, they actually did a pretty good job. And also, if you review the movie on its own, it is a fun movie. They have loads of cool battle sequences, loads of cool visuals, really great character-driven narrative. The storytelling is really, really cool. It is a very satisfying movie. Obviously, they could have done more to kind of please more of the older fans in terms of having more of respect for the classic characters, and kind of, you know, it could have been better joined up from the sequel trilogy point of view. But, you know, it is a great standalone film. In terms of comparing it to all of the other Star Wars films, my favourite movie still is Revenge of the Sith, and I feel like this is probably a close second. As it is a really fun movie, it definitely could have done more, but I feel like, you know, from a Star Wars entry point of view, it is definitely a great contender for one of the better movies. Overall, I really enjoyed Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Yes, it definitely would have been better if we had one director across all of the sequel trilogies and really concluding this one in a better way in terms of respecting more of the legacy characters such as Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Mace Windu even, etc. But, you know, that being said, I am a big fan of character-driven movies, and I feel like this is a great character-driven movie, brilliant storytelling, brilliant conclusion, brilliant visuals, and I just feel like that, you know, like I said before, they had a hard job in terms of concluding all of the 9 movies, and I feel like they did it in a satisfying way. And I really love the identity storyline that Rey had in terms of changing from being a Palpatine to a Skywalker, and was actually quite motivating from that point of view as well. And the battle sequences between her, Ben Solo, against Palpatine, who's kind of been the big bad across all of the 9 movies, was absolutely incredible. All of the sequences looked really, really cool. All of the visuals, all of the location that they went to, everything looked absolutely brilliant in this movie, and I feel like it was a really good, satisfying conclusion. Yes, like I said before, they definitely could have done more, but I feel like as far as this movie goes, they did a pretty decent job. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. I'd love to hear what you think, so please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.